The much-awaited sequel to Joker, titled Joker, Folie Deux, was easily one of my most anticipated films of the year. So of course I went to the theater to go see it this weekend, so let's review. Joker, Folie Deux takes place sometime after the events of the first film. We once again follow Arthur Fleck, who is imprisoned at Arkham Asylum, and then he meets Harley Quinn, or Lee Quinzel as she is referred to in this movie. Through music, they form a special connection, and among all the musical elements within this film, this is also essentially a courtroom drama where Arthur Fleck is on trial for his crimes that he committed in the first film. Now, like I said, this was easily one of my most anticipated movies of the year, right next to Deadpool and Wolverine. The original Joker from 2019 was my absolute favorite film of that year. I recently did a rewatch of the film, check out my review, but to sum it up, I love the film for how different it was, it had something to say, and it was an interesting take on an iconic character. And despite the fact that I felt that first film was fine as a great standalone movie, I was still curious to see what they would do for the sequel when it was announced. But then they announced that it would be a musical, to which a lot of people, myself included, collectively said,
"It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them."
Then they announced Lady Gaga will be playing Harley Quinn. And even though I haven't loved every movie she's been in, I always thought she is a good actress. And I am a casual fan of her music. And given how this sequel is a musical, this should be a slam dunk for her. But now the movie's finally here, and over the course of the weekend, it has been getting nothing but mixed reviews. Either you like it or you didn't like it, but the people that don't like it are probably the loudest ones right now. And where do I personally fall? I'm sorry, but I'll say this. When I walked out, I really did not like the movie, but the more I sit with it, there are things that stand out to me on a good note. But overall, everybody's saying this really did not need a sequel, and they're right. The original movie really did not need a sequel, and this movie is further proof that just because a movie is very successful commercially does not mean that it needs a sequel. But first, let me talk about all the good things. I do like the cinematography in this film. It's basically on par, if not better, than the first film. I'm not gonna try to pronounce her name, but they brought back the original composer for this film to do the score, and she did an excellent job. Joaquin Phoenix is still good as the Joker. What I like what they did with him in this movie is that the first movie was basically him becoming the Joker, and this movie is basically the aftermath of that. What happens when you become such a known figure that everybody idolizes you, and even to the point where they don't recognize that there's a difference between Joker and Arthur Fleck. And we definitely see in this movie he is torn between the two, even to the point where his lawyer, she's basically trying to make a case saying like, hey, there's two different split personalities. Lady Gaga, despite the fact that I don't think she was given nearly as much to do in this film outside of all the musical stuff, I did think that she was fine for the most part. I do like that she's basically not your typical Harley Quinn, but in the sense that she's someone that idolizes the Joker, but not Arthur Fleck. I really like how this movie has something to say about idolizing your idols and why you shouldn't meet them and how they could ultimately disappoint you in the end. And they do something with the Harley Quinn character that is not typical for her origin, but then again, the first movie was not typical for the Joker, so. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to spoil it, but when you see it, I did feel like it was a little bit clever. They're trying to put Harley Quinn on a more positive note in relation to the relationship between Joker and Harley. Now, Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga together, obviously they're great together. They complement each other's performances, which was definitely needed for a Joker and Harley Quinn movie. He compliments her crazy, she compliments his crazy, and they're both excellent singers. As far as the rest of the cast, you have Catherine Keener, who plays Arthur Fleck's lawyer in the movie. You got Brendan Gleeson, who plays one of the bodyguards at Arkham Asylum, and he's somewhat of a complex character, but Brendan Gleeson, he's always good in anything you put him in. You also get some returning characters from the first film. One in particular, I'm not going to spoil. In fact, I already had it spoiled for me on TikTok before I even saw the movie. movie, but one other person you may have seen in the trailers. But through those characters, I do like how this movie does build off of everything that happened in that first movie, because it gives some weight to everything that happens in this movie. I do appreciate what very little Batman references we have in this movie, because little Bruce Wayne was in the first movie, and no sign of him here in this movie. However, we do get Harvey Dent in this movie. He's basically the one that combats Arthur Fleck doing the courtroom stuff. On one hand, I do think this movie has some cool and interesting ideas, but it all gets bogged down by all the musical aspects of this movie, and there is a handful of musical numbers in this movie that just makes this movie more bloated than it needs to be. And I'll admit, the production design within these musical numbers are fantastic and fun to look at, but at the same time, it still doesn't serve the story and the movie. The first half of this movie basically takes place in Arkham Asylum, and the second half of this movie is a courtroom drama. And I feel like both of those things together would have been fine on their own if it wasn't for all the musical numbers. In the end, this movie just feels like a real cash grab to me, because I feel like Todd Phillips, he really didn't want to do a sequel, but the first movie made $1 billion, and it won Joaquin Phoenix an Academy Award, so they're like, hey, can you make another one, please? And to Todd Phillips' credit, he really tried to do something different, and I always appreciate when filmmakers try to do something different, especially for a sequel. But at the same time, I just feel like this movie really didn't come together. It's all over the place, it's a little incohesive. Everybody's talking about the ending of the movie, which I won't spoil. And at first it made me slightly mad, but the more I think about it, it makes sense in context of the movie, but I just feel like it still could have been illustrated a little better. As for Todd Phillips, I mean, this movie definitely proves that sequels are just not for him. He made The Hangover, and then he made The Hangover 2 and 3, which is not as good as the first Hangover. And now here we are with Joker Folie, which really isn't as good as the first Joker. I give the movie credit for being different and creative, and I'll also give the performers and everyone behind the scenes credit for making something that, at least production wise, is on par with the first film. But at the same time, to me, this is still a mediocre, studio mandated sequel that did not need to exist. I'm gonna give Joker Folie Deux the shoulder shrug emoji. Did you see it? If so, did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments section below. This your boy Bankful B from the Lassiter Factor. Stay safe, wash your hands, peace.